Apparently, we might be moving a step or two closer to actual legal consequences for Donald Trump. I know it sounds impossible and it probably won't come true, but according to a group of prosecutors with the Department of Justice, they believe that Trump could be charged with obstruction in the stolen documents Mar-A-Lago scandal. But they haven't yet made any formal recommendation on whether he should be charged. And at the end of the day, it's not gonna be them that's gonna make that decision. It's gonna be Attorney General Merrick Garland. They're apparently split, not really on the substance of the charges or the substance of the law, but if whether it would be advisable to charge Trump given the potential political ramifications. And for this is the least surprising thing that could be potentially staying their hand. And it's also, I think to me at least, the worst reason to not pursue justice. If you know that someone broke the law, if it's clear indeed that they also obstructed the investigation into them breaking the law, and the only thing that might stop you from actually charging them is, well, I don't know politically what's gonna happen. That is just that. Look, first of all, that's the story of Donald Trump's entire political career, being protected by a variety of overlapping layers of privilege. But it's also incredibly distressing considering that he has shown time and again over the past few years that when you let him get away with crimes, he doesn't count his lucky stars and then swear to never crime again. It only emboldens him. And so we're gonna see if they do. This doesn't prove that they will, it doesn't prove that they won't. If they do, it might take a little while. I was hoping maybe that we would hear something before the midterms, but apparently sources inside of the DOJ are saying that it likely wouldn't be until after Christmas, certainly not in the next few weeks before the midterms. And we're gonna get into if they were to charge him for these particular crimes that they're talking about, what sort of consequences there could be. But A.B, I'm curious, you have a legal background, whereas I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to this stuff. So what do you think about the debate that they appear to be having over focusing on obstruction, at least as one big part of it? And to what extent do you think they should be considering the political ramifications?
Okay, so boom, honestly, I think that is really important when it comes to a case this serious, because what we don't want is for people to think like, oh, they're just playing this game just because they don't want him to run for president. You want people to have faith in the justice system, in our legal system. And so if they charge him too early, right, before the elections, it can look like the Department of Justice is just kind of muddying the waters right before the election. So whatever team they're supposedly on can win, right? So sometimes, which is why most of the time DOJ does not touch anyone who is a potential candidate, right, or is involved in an election. They normally don't put anything out there. Now, granted, they didn't follow that well when it came to Hillary. I don't know if you remember that. They went ahead and went against the better grain and did that, and we see how it turned out, right? So I don't know if they've learned their lesson from that case, but I think it's good to hold out. The only issue with that on the other side is like, if it was anybody else, would you do the same thing? So it looks like we're giving favoritism, right, to an individual who has been implicated in I don't know how many crimes. All his friends, partners, you know what I'm saying? The person who washed his car, whoever make his potato salad, they didn't caught charges already, had to plead and all kind of stuff. So now it looks like, okay, but if you're the big dog causing all the issues, how come we're not prosecuting you?
Yeah.
So it can go either way.
Yeah, I get that. And I think that a lot of what you just said is definitely on their mind. It is frustrating to me for a variety of different reasons. I mean, as you pointed out, he's not a sitting politician. He's not a candidate for office right now. He hasn't been a candidate for office for more than a year and a half. How much of a buffer are we supposed to provide for him? And by the way, you might have seen over the past couple of weeks, Fox talking about how hot they are for some sort of investigation into Hunter Biden. They just did a mock trial, notably close to an election, mind you. Weird, it almost seems political. They were looking at Nancy Pelosi's husband, apparently for good cause, but it was also kind of close to an election. Weird that they would do that. They don't actually mean this. They don't want him to be investigated literally ever. If they do it in December or January, you can make up a month. It doesn't matter, they're gonna have a problem with it. And by the way, like it's convenient for them to now turn around and say, you can't charge him right now when he was delaying the investigation into this document scandal for a very long time. They would have loved to have gotten those documents back right after inauguration, or preferably have him not steal them at all. He kept delaying it, and then he wanted the special master, and that delayed it even more. And so at what point do we just have to say, if this is suspiciously close to the election, it's your fault, dude. Like, you're the one who is asking for this. Now, if there is some sort of charges that eventually come about, let's try to get an idea of what the actual consequences could be. Again, it's probably not gonna happen. And if it does, it'll be after Christmas. But anyway, the federal statute that Trump is being investigated under that involves obstruction of this sort carries a potential fine or prison sentence of up to 20 years. However, it would be super weird if they only charged him with obstruction, assuming they do charge him with obstruction. There's obviously some sort of underlying crime. Those sorts of crimes could carry fines, prison sentences of an additional 3 to 10 years. I find it inconceivable that we will ever live in a reality where he's going to be sentenced to 30 years in prison, AB, but I don't know. I've been beaten down by the daily flood of the news. Do you have any hope?
I do not see him getting nowhere near 30 years in prison, right? Honestly, when you're risking putting a former president in prison who has the power to get people to act up however he wants them to just by using their words. Right, yeah. So that's a dangerous position that you're putting him in right there. As much as most of us believe it's time for you to do some jail time, right? You do the crime, go ahead and do your time. It's very unlikely, especially in the heat with the DOJ right now, when you got the Republican Party talking about cancel them, right? We need to they're hurting us. The same treatment we've been getting for years. I'm gonna just put it out there like that. But yeah, I don't see him going to prison for that long. He might get a slap on the wrist. But honestly, I think all of it comes down to, we don't want you to run this country ever again. We don't care if you go to jail, just stay away from the White House. Stay away from politics, period.
I just wish I could get all of these annoying rich guys to just buy an island and go there. Or Mars, if you prefer.
Well, they did that with Jeffrey Epstein, and then you see what happened. True. So we probably don't want them to do that anymore.
Yeah, I guess I should be careful what I wish for.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.